Remember those days when Blockbuster was the place to go for movie rentals? Welcome back to Nostalgia Nonsense, where we dive into those unforgettable moments in history and pop culture that still make us scratch our heads and feel all the feels today. I'm Tylah Hill, and today's episode is all about a global event that had people on edge. It's the time that the world almost entered as we approached the year 2000. The Y2K bug. Imagine being born and then automatically being 100 years old. Well, that actually happened. I'll break it all down later on in the podcast. But first, buckle up while we chat about the Brat in Blockbuster. Let's hit rewind. Let me take you back to the early 2000s or even the 90s when video stores were a thing. Blockbuster or Video Easy were always my go-to to go get a movie rental, and it was just like such a good thing, especially when the weekend came around. You know, it's a Friday night, it's time to go to Blockbuster and get a weekly movie. You could go chill in the weekly section where your parents look at the overnighters and the three-nighter films. Like, it was such a good time. I remember one particular time I was maybe around 7 or 8, and we headed to Blockbuster to indulge in some movies, and we would never get snacks in Blockbuster because literally, why is the popcorn so overpriced and expensive? Mum's like, we've got popcorn at home. Mum would get like the bag one that you put in the microwave. It's way funner to make and it's way cheaper. So we'd always just get popcorn at home because the popcorn in Blockbuster was like way overpriced. Same with all the chocolates and the treats. Bloody crazy. On this particular Friday night, things didn't go quite to plan. My brother had been in a bit of a mood. It was one of those tantrums where like you just cry and everything just seems to be going wrong. And you know, it's just all a blur. But I think maybe he didn't get the video he wanted, or maybe he was like wanted a weekly and an overnighter, or maybe he wanted that overly expensive popcorn or chocolate. Whatever it was, he was just like in a full blown sulk, and like Mum wasn't going to let him get his way. It was also like so annoying when like one person wanted, like it was fine if someone got a weekly and someone got an overnighter, but when someone wanted like an overnighter, then another person wanted a three-nighter, then another person wanted like a weekly, like it just got a bit too much because you have to bring them all back on different days. And what we'd normally just do is bring the three-nighter back on an overnighter. So we just treat the three-nighter as an overnighter and bring it back. Oh, quite complex logistics there. While my brother was having the biggest tantrum of his life, my mum was really trying her best to manage his moodiness and also just make sure that we all still had fun. And, you know, it was a family fun night. It's Friday night. Chill out, bro. Why are you crying? So she eventually told him to go and sit and wait in the car until the rest of the family finished picking their movies. So she was like, nah, I've had it. You can go sit in the car and you don't get to choose a movie this time. She reached that point. And that's when my brother's little adventure begins. Also, can we talk about that there's always a pizza shop near a video store? We always had an Eagle Boys. Whether I lived in Queensland or New South Wales, there was always the Eagle Boys that would be next to the Blockbuster. The Eagle Boys was always that pink pizza shop. Have you guys ever had that? I think actually the creator of the pink Eagle Boys brand seen like a car that was this cool pink. I forgot what car it was. But that is what inspired him to make Eagle Boys pink. I could do like a full deep dive on Eagle Boys. Maybe I should save that TikTok for another day though. So eventually, while my brother has gone and sat in the car, the rest of my family finished their movie selections and then also went and headed out into the car park. And he was still sobbing away in the bad mood. We walked out and seen him sitting in a car. But it was a car that was parked near ours and looked a lot like our car. It was a similar make and colour, and in his tantrum-induced fog, he made the classic mistake and just assumed the car was ours and hopped in. Now, my family could have just went and knocked on the window and let him know, but instead we all just got into the car next to our copycat car next to us, and then we just waited for him to notice. Eventually, he turned to the car and realized that we were all sitting there in our actual car, and the horror on his face is something that I would never forget. I can just imagine him sitting there and realizing how many different odd things are in the back of that car. Like, oh, these toys don't quite look like ours. And, I don't think they are our CDs. I didn't know we had that CD. Like, I can just imagine him thinking, this looks a bit odd, but just going along with it still, just because he's in that tantrum fogginess. It's so funny that he was just in his own whole world of complaints that he didn't realize he was in the wrong car. He was mortified, embarrassed, and after that, I think he was just quiet for the rest of the way back home because he was just so embarrassed and thinking about the mistake that he had just made. And that's one way to shut up your kids. If you guys have ever had a story like this where you've done something super embarrassing or made a mistake inside a tantrum fog, let me know. You can slide into my DMs over on Instagram at Tylah Hill. Even send me a voice note there. Who knows? I might feature you in the pod. This has obviously become one of those family stories that you just bring up all the time for embarrassment. I will never let go of this. You sat in the wrong car at Blockbuster. Looking back, it's pretty funny to see how a bad mood led to such an unexpected adventure. It's quite a reminder to maybe just check yourself before you wreck yourself when you're in your tantrum fogginess. And, sometimes our worst moments can lead to even worse moments, or I guess the best stories at least. And hopefully this whole situation and story had taught him a valuable lesson to not be a brat in Blockbuster and just choose a bloody weekly movie, mate. You don't need to get a weekly, an overnighter and a three-nighter. Just get 1 or 2 weeklies. Like, I don't know, just maybe have some respect and don't be so selfish, mate. Anyway, so that's the story of the Brat in Blockbuster. Speaking of Blockbuster, imagine getting a $91,250 late fee from Blockbuster. Well, that happened to someone in New York because the store computer determined that a tape rental was 100 years overdue. Why do you ask? Well, it's all to do with the Y2K bug. Let's set the stage. It's the late 1990s and the world is gearing up to welcome a new millennium. But there was one huge cloud of anxiety that was looming over New Year's Eve of 1999. And it had all to do with what we now call the Y2K bug. Hi, so I just would like to return this VHS. Oh, yeah, sure. So this VHS is 100 years overdue. So that will be $91,250, please. Bro, can you imagine? I would shit myself on the spot. Sorry, that was probably too much information. So what is the Y2K bug, you ask? Well, basically, the issue was rooted in how dates were stored in many computer systems back in the 1960s and 70s when computer memory was a really precious commodity. Programmers used a 2-digit format for the years, so instead of writing 1999, did I say that right? Did I say the right amount of nines? So instead of writing 1999, they would write just 99. So instead of 4 numbers, they would have 2 numbers. And this did seem perfectly logical at the time. Like, why do you need to waste space on extra numbers if you don't need them? Well, as the year 2000 approached, it became super clear that this practice could lead to major problems. And the fear was that computers might not be able to interpret the 00. They would interpret it as 1900 instead of the year 2000. And I know what you're thinking, it makes some computers stop working. Well, when you think about it, computers are behind a lot of things. Think planes, transport, banking, finance, Blockbuster rentals. It could cause a lot of software to fail, databases to misinterpret data, and really critical systems to crash. Imagine the chaos if trains and air traffic control towers and systems misinterpreted the data and simply stopped working. It was really a recipe for potential disaster, and governments took it really seriously. In Australia, they recently released some papers, which is basically the National Cabinet, and their discussions on how they were going to handle the Y2K bug. The National Archives papers revealed that the Howard government took the Y2K bug very seriously, and after all, when you do think about it, the Y2K bug was going to hit Australia and New Zealand before it hit other parts of the world like Asia, Europe, and America. So really, we were the main testing grounds for this. We were going to be the first countries to see what actually happens. And obviously that's because our time zone is ahead of theirs. They estimated that between 30 and 50% of companies and government agencies worldwide might face critical system failures, potentially costing up to $3 trillion globally. I can't even fathom that number. Give me $3 trillion, please. I don't know what I'd bloody do with it. The Australian Immigration and Multicultural Affairs Minister at the time in Australia noted that his department budget would be significantly cut to address the Y2K problem. So what it actually led to was a $50 fee for short-term visas to help bridge the financial gap, expected to raise $160 million over the 4-year period. So what problems actually ended up being faced, you ask? Let's run through a few examples. When it came down to it, the Australian bus ticket validation machines in 2 states failed to work, which means that people couldn't get bus tickets in Australia. Yeah, sorry mate, your systems are down for the bus, so you're going to have to bloody walk. The credit card companies MasterCard and Visa reported that as a direct result of the Y2K glitch, for weeks after the year rollover, a small percentage of their customers were being charged multiple times for transactions. Can you imagine getting a $5 coffee and then getting charged multiple times for your $5 coffee just because of a computer glitch? Also, Microsoft reported that the Hotmail emails sent out in October of 1999 or earlier, they showed up as having been sent in the year 2099. Imagine sending an email in the future, 100 years in the future. While this didn't actually affect the email's contents, it would be quite embarrassing and crazy to get an email from someone that's dated 100 years in the future. Hi, this is your boss, and you're fired. In 2099, you'll be fired. Yeah, just wanted to let you know, mate. Just wanted to give you that heads up, 100 years heads up. Also, the store 7-Eleven, they reported that they weren't able to process transactions. And with theirs, it wasn't directly after the year 2000. It was actually a complete year after. So when it first turned the 1st of January 2001, they interpreted the year to be 1901. So they hadn't had any other glitches beforehand, but on the 1st of January 2001, they were not able to process transactions. Also in New Zealand, a similar thing, they had 4,000 electronic terminals that couldn't properly authenticate transactions. In Jamaica, there were some traffic lights at major intersections that literally just stopped working. In Hong Kong, there were police breathalyzers that just failed to work at midnight. So imagine that, you could get as drunk as you wanted on New Year's in Hong Kong and you couldn't get breathalyzed. Yeah, sorry mate, we can't actually breathalyze you because it stopped working. I'm fucking 20 times over the limit, mate. What do you mean? Well, we can't breathalyze you, so yeah, I can't charge you because I can't actually check that. So, it's just a warning. Well, it's actually nothing because I can't prove it, mate. Korea University sent graduation certificates to people that had graduated, and their certificates were dated the 13th of January, 1900. They graduated 100 years earlier. There are also records of babies being born and being accidentally registered as a newborn and being born in the year of 1900. You're now 100 years old. A granny baby. Literally a granny baby. So there was obviously a lot of things that were mitigated as a result, but basically there was about $300 billion estimated to be spent worldwide just to prepare computer systems for the year 2000, which is quite crazy, and I'm quite thankful for it because, if we didn't get the year 2000, we wouldn't have had the Sydney Olympics, we wouldn't have got Big Brother Australia a few years later, we wouldn't have got Steve Irwin and Australia Zoo. I guess we probably still would have because they existed before 2000, but, they became popular during the early 2000s. There's so many things that we wouldn't have got, and, you wouldn't have got this podcast either. So be thankful that the world didn't end in the year 2000. And that's all we have time for today. I'd love to hear from you. Do you have any embarrassing childhood stories? Anything happened to you at Blockbuster? Feel free to reach out to me and let me know on Instagram. And don't forget to follow the podcast, leave a rating or review, give me those 5 stars, and follow me on socials for more throwback and stories. Thanks for joining on Nostalgia and Nonsense. And if you didn't know, you can also grab your digital citizenship to my internet island. Basically, it's an online community on Patreon where we chat about all things nostalgia. You can do some polls on there, get extra content. There's a lot happening on there. By joining, you can support me and help me create more content. And you also get a discount on my party game Off Your Chops and also some nostalgic merch on that website too. Check the show notes for the link to join my internet island. Anyway, that's all we have time for. Keep those memories alive and keep reminiscing. I'll catch you guys next week. And if you still have any video rentals, make sure you return them, please. Yep, they're probably still waiting for you. Don't want to cop that fine. Bye.